Mitch Keller pitched a masterclass on Monday, leading to the Pirates' third straight win.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And that is your Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. My name is Ethan Smith, your host of this wonderful show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode always brought to you by some of our wonderful sponsors here on this show. Today's sponsor, of course, being the wonderful people over at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. And right now, folks, if you're betting on some Pirates props over at Prize Picks, if you're betting on the right ones, like, Edward Olivares to hit a grand slam, can't do that, but you could have bet over for a home run, you know, win some money. And right now, folks, we are seeing a Pittsburgh Pirates team who was in a very deep slump, slowly starting to come out of it now. Now, a lot of people will make the argument with this team right now that they are indeed playing some lower competition. Obviously, the Oakland Athletics playing a lot better baseball than a lot of people expected at this current moment. They took the sweep from them, but then they came home. They beat the Colorado Rockies 2 out of 3. They get a big win last night against the Los Angeles Angels, the Mike Troutless Los Angeles Angels, may I add. And it, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, it always sucks when Mike Trout gets hurt because he is one of the best players in baseball history. And he's a guy that when he's playing, baseball is just a better sport. And that's just how I feel about it. But when you look at what the Pirates did last night, and what they've been able to do now over the past 3 games, they're hitting the baseball again. That is a big, big component to all of this. Is they're starting to hit the baseball again. We're starting to see them put up runs. Now, it's not the crazy outputs that some people would like 9 or 10 runs, but they scored 4 runs last night. And then they scored 5 on Sunday. Obviously, they get the win 1-0 on Saturday against the Colorado Rockies. But what we've been able to see over these past 3 games is that the starting pitching has still looked very good while the offense is starting to find its bearings again. And last night, we got another phenomenal showing from a starting pitcher, and that would, of course, be Mitch Keller, who would pitch his second career complete game against the Los Angeles Angels last night. Obviously, for Mitch, it's been a shaky start to the year for him, obviously. Getting that big extension in the offseason was a big deal for him. Mitch Keller obviously being one of those guys that we all saw really struggle to begin his MLB career, being arguably one of the worst starting pitchers in all of baseball through his first couple seasons. 2022, he gets sent down, even saw that bullpen move, but when he came back up, ever since he came back up from that moment, Mitch Keller has looked like a bona fide starting pitcher in this league, and he's taken it and ran with it. He's been the opening day starter for the past 2 years now. Obviously, this year would have liked to have a much better opening day start than he did in 2023. But last night, I mean, he just had a great game. And honestly, props to Derek Shelton, too, for letting him pitch that 9th inning. I was for sure thinking that Mitch Keller was going to come out there. Derek Shelton handed him the ball in the 9th inning, and he did exactly what he needed to do, going 1, 2, 3 in that 9th inning. Final line for Keller in that one was 9 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 5 strikeouts. Obviously, only surrendered the 1 home run to Zach Neto, I believe, but that's neither here nor there. Mitch Keller, his ERA, by the way, drops to a 4.41 after this. His biggest struggles have really been documented pretty clearly by manager Derek Shelton as well. He's missing in the zone way too much. He's in the middle of the zone a lot. He's been in the middle of the zone to start the year quite a bit. We didn't see that last night. Now, don't get me wrong either. The Angels are a team right now that the Pirates and their pitching should have a lot of success against. This Angels lineup without Mike Trout does not have a lot of guys that you're too scared of. It does not have a lot of guys that are going to hit for plus power. It does not have a lot of guys that are really just going to hit for above average at all. And Keller took advantage of that last night. And you really look at what Keller's been able to do over his past, couple of starts, and those being against the Milwaukee Brewers, the Oakland Athletics, and of course the complete game last night against the LA Angels. And yeah, he allowed 4 earned runs against Milwaukee. He allowed 3 against Oakland and 1 last night. But what we've seen now is that strikeout number that he's very good with is starting to come back up. He's had 7, 7, and 5 strikeouts in his last 3 starts. He's also throughout the entire season done very well at just going deep in the ball games. He's went at least 5 innings in all of his starts thus far. Obviously, the end of April, he probably would have liked to have a little bit of better ending of April than he had a beginning. Obviously, had those 2 strong months in in the middle with Detroit and Philadelphia, where he had a lot of success. But then you look at what he was able to do against the Angels last night, and I think that gives you some confidence that Mitch Keller is going to be that kind of guy that's just going to pick it up eventually because he was paid to do so. He was paid because he is a talented pitcher in this league. And last night was a very, very, very good indication that Keller is coming out of it a little bit. And it was just the second time, or it was just the third time this year that he's allowed 2 earned runs or less in a start. And I expect him to really become more consistent. And even Derek Shelton, again, talking to media about it, was saying if he could stay out of the middle of the zone, which has been a big issue for Keller to begin the year, then he'll be just fine because everything else has pretty much been okay, besides the fact that he does miss in the middle of the zone quite a bit. Now, how does he fix that? Well, we talked about the cutter a lot to begin the year, and it's a pitch that he's still throwing. It's a pitch that's improved since we were all talking about it. But I still would like to see him lean into the sinker quite a bit more. It's a pitch that obviously got him to where he's been at this point. And it's a pitch that honestly is one of, if not his best pitch in his arsenal. And when he uses it more often than not, he's going to have more success than he normally would. And we've seen him use quite a bit of his pitches, but even Bob Walk on the broadcast last night admitted that Keller would like to go into starts not having to use all of his pitches. And a lot of pitchers probably think that way, or they don't want to have to use their entire arsenal of pitches, because if they're having to do that, chances are their top pitches are not on. Keller last night did not have to do that. It was a lot of the slider, it was a lot of the sinker, and it was a lot of his other pitches that he throws well that he just needs to lean into more. And you look just overall with Keller about what's been the biggest issue. Really, it's been away games. That's been well documented as well. His ERA on the road is a 5.09. His ERA at home right now is a 3.81. So he likes to pitch more at home. That's something maybe that's coincidental, or maybe it's something that's a trend. It's kind of hard to pick up on those kind of things. Even more so, his ERA in day games is a 5.32, while his ERA in night games is a 3.55. So there are splits that do kind of show that Mitch Keller is having more success in certain situations. It's very early in the year, but some of those things can at least have some meaning. So if he can start performing better on the road, which is something that I expect him to do, I really do think that start last night was a springboard for consistency for Mitch Keller. I think we're going to start seeing those 6-7 inning starts of 2 earned runs or less from him more often than not as the season progresses, because he's just that good of a pitcher. And I know some people are going to say, well, he's only had a good about year and a half, 2 years, but he was paid and extended to be a top pitcher on the staff, and that's what I think he will continue to be as the season progresses. Now, obviously, it does help that you have guys like Martin Perez, Jared Jones, even Quinn Priester having success right now. You also look at a guy like Bailey Falter, who's played a lot better than a lot of us expected. So the pitching staff overall has been a positive and a plus for this team. And That's not even factoring in Paul Skeens, who we'll talk about in news and notes in the final segment of today's show. But for Mitch, he gets the third win of the season for himself. 9 innings pitched, again, his second complete game of his career against the Los Angeles Angels. But he's not the only one slowly and surely heating up, because we're going to talk about Oneil Cruz, who slowly and surely is starting to pick things back up again in the month of May after a kind of slow start to the year. We're going to talk about Oneil Cruz and his importance to the Pittsburgh Pirates and why they more than often will win when he's playing well. But before we do that, folks, we're going to talk about Prize Picks and Monopoly Go. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100, because Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season is officially underway and in full swing, so don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick of more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. You can also get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the NBA postseason. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. Download Monopoly Go free on the App Store and Google Play, because we got to pause here and talk about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. You get unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on at Monopoly Go. And folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, every single day. Make sure you also check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV. Get all your analysis from all the local hosts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Again, where it is any of your teams every single day, but specifically on this show, we're talking about, of course, the Pittsburgh Pirates. And a player in particular that I want to talk about is Oneil Cruz. And Oneil Cruz is a guy that, when you really break it down to a baseball science, as I like to say sometimes, Oneil Cruz came off of an injury that for some players, they might not ever come back from. And when you look at how this season has started for Cruz, he obviously got the opening day home run that ended up leading to a win for the Pittsburgh Pirates. But he's had his ups and downs this year. Obviously, most strikeouts in the first 30 games of a season, I believe it was, for a Pittsburgh Pirate in history. He's among the team leaders or the MLB leaders in strikeouts, among of all these things. But when you go and actually break down what Oneil Cruz has been able to do and what kind of player he's been this year, it's very interesting that when you actually just look at his baseline stats, they're not all that bad. They're not where you want them to be, but they're not horrible. And 131 at-bats this year, folks. Oneil Cruz has a .244 batting average, 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, and a .75 OPS. Again, not numbers that you want Oneil Cruz to be at. You want those numbers to be higher, especially the OPS number. But he's not playing all that bad. And lately, he's picked it up quite a bit. You look over his last 15 games for Oneil Cruz, he's batting .298 with an on-base of .353 and a slugging of .468. And in that time, he has 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, and 14 strikeouts to 4 walks. It's not all that bad. You want to even shorten it. In his last 7 games, he has 2 home runs and 4 RBIs, only 8 strikeouts in those 7 games, a .261 average and a .522 slugging with a .292 on-base percentage. So Oneil Cruz is playing good baseball lately. And obviously the Pirates have not had the sustained success that they would like to have lately, but they've now won 3 straight games. And I don't think that it's exactly rocket science to think that a guy like Oneil Cruz is important to this team. And more often than not, when he's playing well, the team is also playing well. Last night, he was 1 for 3 batting in the 7 hole. Triolo got on base via a walk. Michael A. Taylor didn't have a great day, but the top of the lineup had a good day. And Oneil Cruz is the kind of guy that it almost feels like he's contagious. When Oneil Cruz is on and having a good go of things, it does almost feel like his confidence and what he does at the plate almost exudes to everybody else. And we saw that a lot in that win on Sunday against the Colorado Rockies, where Cruz was 2 for 4, had 2 RBIs, including the home run. Everybody else on the team, though, for instance, he had a great day. You had Tellez, who got a RBI. You had Olivares, who had a hit. You had Sawinski, who had a hit and an RBI coming off the walk-off on Saturday. Reynolds had a 2 for 4 day. Hayes had a 1 for 4 day and an RBI. This is the point that I'm trying to make. Connor Joe, for instance, who is arguably the best hitter on the roster right now, is not a player who can carry this team on his back. Brian Reynolds is a phenomenal baseball player. Second on the team in OPS, only behind Connor Joe. He's, as Gary said on yesterday's show, and as I agree with, Brian Reynolds is a great player, but not the type of player to carry a team on his back throughout an entire year. Ke'Bryan Hayes, phenomenal baseball player, Gold Glover. The bat has been there since August of last year, but he is also not a player that is going to carry this team. Oneil Cruz has the tools, the ability, and just everything. He has the tool set to be able to put this team on his back if he has to. And over the past 3 days, that being Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, we've kind of seen that. Saturday, he didn't have a great game. He was 0 for 3, but he did get on base via a walk. But over the past couple games, we're starting, and even the past week and change, we're starting to see Oneil Cruz kind of get back into his game now. And I think a big component to that is now that we're about a month into the year, a little bit over a month into the year, factor in, folks, that before this season, Oneil Cruz did not play a baseball game for almost a calendar year. He did not play baseball since breaking his ankle for almost an entire season. For a guy that's 6'7", has the build that Oneil Cruz has, that is an injury that to most players of that build, that would be a death sentence to them. So obviously it was going to take Oneil Cruz a bit of time to readjust to playing the game of baseball, especially playing shortstop every day. And I also want to applaud the Pirates a little bit because I think that they've done a pretty good job at recognizing when Oneil Cruz is getting a bit tired. And we see that with Alika Williams and Jared Triolo sometimes supplanting him at shortstop. And that's fine. Because, yes, Oneil Cruz still has his defensive shortcomings. Yes, he still could be performing a lot better. Yes, you would like to see him not strike out as much. But this idea that he's playing absolutely horrible, is something that I find funny because, again, over the last 15 games, he's been arguably one of, if not the Pirates' best hitter. And when he hits the baseball more often than not, folks, this Pirates team is going to win. He is that important to this lineup. He is that important to this team. That is just the kind of player he is. And he's only 25. That is the phenomenal part about this, is he has all the time in the world to let that massive ceiling that we've heard about from Oneil Cruz fully grow, fully be met. And again, tonight, I think he'll have a limited chance of doing great things because he does face a lefty, but Cruz has also done okay for the most part against lefties over the last couple of weeks. He really has. And when you factor in, too, that he's only 131 at-bats in, on his career, folks, last night, he just surpassed 500 career at-bats. Isn't that really insane? Because it feels like Cruz has been here for a very long time, which he kind of has. But 503 at-bats and a career 731 OPS with 24 homers and 73 RBIs. Oneil Cruz is still every bit of the budding star that we think he could be. He just has to tap into it. That's really all it is. And as I mentioned, he'll face a lefty tonight. He's batting 132 versus lefties. We'll see what he can do and what the Pirates can do against Patrick Sandoval. But we're going to talk about some news and notes, specifically something that Gary and I talked about on yesterday's show that we got some news about. And we're also going to preview Game 2 against the Los Angeles Angels at 6:40 tonight here on the Locked On Pirates podcast. But before we do that, folks, let's talk about DoorDash. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by DoorDash. Order on DoorDash today using code LOCKEDONMLB because, folks, moms are a gift. So give her the best this Mother's Day. Get gifts as thoughtful as she is with DoorDash and select from hundreds of expertly crafted bouquets to the best of tech to self-care essentials and more delivered right to her door. Make sure you get something thoughtful for mom on DoorDash, and you can get those thoughtful gifts she deserves with the convenience you need, because on DoorDash, you can choose same-day delivery or schedule a week ahead for when flowers and gifts should arrive to her door with DoorDash. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with code LOCKEDONMLB. That's code LOCKEDONMLB in all caps when ordering on DoorDash today. Terms apply. Make sure you get mom something great with DoorDash. And folks, welcome back to the final segment of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every day. Again, my name is Ethan Smith. Follow me right there on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. We'll do that at the end of the show again as well. But it was announced, something that me and Gary talked about, something I even wrote about on Steel City Pirates, was the idea that Policygenius could see his time in AAA coming to a close. Made his first start on 4 days rest on, I believe it was Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday. Excuse me. And that was kind of a box that I think the Pirates wanted to check, is how would he perform? How would he look on his first start at 4 days rest? And he had arguably his worst start, gave up his first AAA home run. His ERA more than doubled to a, oh my God, 0.099 or a 0.99, sorry. But there was a potential idea I floated around in my head that a guy like Policygenius could debut this Friday against the Cubs. I'll be at that game no matter what, even if he debuts or not. But Derek Shelton came out and said he's scheduled to pitch in Indianapolis this week. So that kind of shuts that down. It shuts it down for now because we know that he's going to debut at home. We know that he's going to have that announced very early so that the Pirates can make that a sellout because people will want to see it. I still think that it's going to happen in May. Pinpoint either the Giants series or the Braves series. The likelihood of it, because yes, there is a business aspect to this as well from the Pirates standpoint. Do not get that twisted at all. Yes, they might have a target date. I'm pretty sure they have a target date, but there is a business aspect behind this. I would expect that it would probably be the Braves later this month. They're going to want it to be on a weekend. They're going to want him to be fully ready when he comes up here. That would give him about 2 or maybe 3 more starts at AAA, and he would come up. Now, I spoke about rotation earlier. What's interesting about this is you're going to have to take likely Bailey Falter out of the rotation. And we've already seen Martin Perez and Jared Jones and Mitch Keller flash brilliance on the mound. Even Bailey Falter and Quinn Priester have done well also. Throw Skeens into that mix and just assume that Paul Skeens comes up and performs really well. Folks, the Pirates could have a top 50, at least a above average rotation in all of baseball. A top half rotation in the National League, and in my opinion, easily the best rotation in the National League Central, if Skeens comes up and performs well. Speaking of performing well, moving away from Skeens, we'll talk about more on Skeens when we actually have actual things to talk about rather than me floating the idea of him coming up. The Pirates will face the Los Angeles Angels tonight, 6:40 Eastern time, game 2 of the series. Pirates sit at 17-19, close, slowly and surely coming back close to 500. Angels at 12-23. It will be Quinn Priester on the mound. Priester, by the way, the aforementioned Quinn Priester, has done pretty well so far. He's been in 3 games, 3.31 ERA since that blow up that he had against the Boston Red Sox. He's looked very impressive. 11 strikeouts, a 1.29 whip, has looked very good in his past 2 starts. Former first-round pick, only 23 years old, kind of maybe following that same trend that Mitch Keller followed where he struggled out of the gate and then figured some things out. Obviously, had a good start in Oakland, 6 innings pitched, only 2 earned runs, had the shutout start against the Giants in the start before that. He will face off against a guy that I expect the Pittsburgh Pirates offense to absolutely shell in Patrick Sandoval, who has 7 starts on the year, a 5.91 ERA, 32 innings pitched, 38 strikeouts, the whip almost a 1.7. What's interesting, his last 2 starts, Sandoval has looked a lot better. 5 innings pitched against the Phillies and only 2 earned runs. 3 earned runs against the Minnesota Twins in the start before that, even though the Twins did hit him 9 times in that. And he had 10 strikeouts in that last start against the Phillies. That's a number that's a little inflated for a guy like Patrick Sandoval. He's much more of a pitch-to-contact lefty than what you would expect from some of these other power-throwing lefties. This is a game for the Pirates that I think they should win. I mean, they are playing the the Los Angeles Angels, a team that is struggling, does not have their best player whatsoever. And they only have 3 players that have experience against Patrick Sandoval, those being Yasmani Grandal, who has a 750 OPS and an RBI and 4 ABs. Olivares has a 666 OPS in 3 at-bats, and then Michael A. Taylor has seen him twice and not hit him. Meanwhile, the Angels have not seen Quinn Priester at all. There's nobody on their roster that has ever faced Quinn Priester, and the Pirates will look to win their 2nd straight series and their 4th straight game against the Los Angeles Angels tonight. And of course, I'll be on Twitter watching it alongside all of you. And if you want to find that, make sure you follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can find this show free and available to you every Monday through Friday on YouTube. Please subscribe and hit that like button, or turn on the notification bell on any of your audio platforms, because again, this show is free and available to you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. Make sure, again, check out Locked On Sports Today. Check out the Twitter accounts for me at MVP_Ethan and at Locked On Pirates. Once again, Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday morning, afternoon, and evening. Enjoy the game tonight, and I'll see you tomorrow. But until then, see you on the flip side.